Hello, it is Lucinda from Nurturing Mums here. How are you doing? Just thought I'd introduce myself. So I run Nurturing Mums postnatal courses. I currently have my newborn on my knee. She's called Tilly. She is 2.5 weeks old, 3 weeks old on Thursday. I am a mum of two. I have a son called Teddy, who is almost 3. Gosh, do you know what? I did not get much sleep last night either. I'm sure any of you watching this are in the same boat. So we're keeping it real. There may be feeding, there may be tears, hopefully not from me. But this morning I am talking about new mum struggles. The struggle is real. I mean, we were up between 2 and 5 a.m. last night. Yeah, and now you're awake, which is good, because if she slept all day, not sure how to feel about that, although I was kind of hoping you'd have a nap now as opposed to be with me having the hiccups. But anyway, so me, new mum of two, run postnatal courses, and I get to meet hundreds of new mums each year with their babies who are between 0 to 9 months, and we get experts to come and talk about all kinds of things like sleep and weaning and baby development and first aid. So yeah, have a lot of experience in meeting new mums, and I'm currently one myself. And apologies again for looking so tired, but you shouldn't apologise because we're all just getting through. So I have been sent some of your questions in advance of today. I'm just going to try and put my little one down in her bouncer. We'll see how that goes. So I've been sent some questions in advance of today to chat about, and I thought we could get started, especially while I am in that new mum phase. It's perfect time to chat. Feel free to ask any questions as we go, but I have been sent quite a few in advance, so just chip in here and there. I'm sure you can watch this later on, but very happy to be going live. So let me talk about the first question I have been asked, and I can tell you a bit more about my kind of birth and my experience as well in a little bit. So the first question I've been asked about life with a newborn is to do with tongue tie. So the question was, my sister's baby had tongue tie which was missed when she was born. Is this common? The answer essentially is yes. A lot of babies do have tongue tie. So for those of you who don't know, and by the way, I'm not medical, but this is all from experience, and my daughter just had tongue tie, is when this kind of underneath bit of our tongue needs to be snipped in order for our babies to feed properly, usually breastfeeding. So tongue tie, it can often be missed at birth. It is checked. Some babies feed perfectly well when they have tongue tie, and unfortunately some don't. They're not able to latch on properly to breastfeeding, so it can actually be really painful. So I just went through it, and you know, we're talking if your boobs are essentially cracked and or bleeding, which I know sounds awful, that can be a real sign that your baby isn't latching on properly. You know, there is support out there, whether it's when you're in hospital, you can ask your health visitor or midwife, or I would really recommend seeing a lactation consultant. It is common, it is missed. You know, there's a lot going on in hospitals. It is missed, but you will hopefully know, because feeding really shouldn't be consistently painful. It is something you can then get sorted. There is often a waiting list, but I would just say if you do find feeding very painful, it's always just worth asking someone to check for you. Because it can be it's very quick, the snip's very quick. So my daughter, they found it at a day, and we managed to get it sorted pretty quickly. So yes, it's common, just get it seen to if you can. Oh, hi Jenny, for watching. I always think this live stuff's great, but it's hugely distracting, but I will try and keep my focus as best I can for anyone who has had 0 sleep. And hopefully, yeah, for those of you that missed this, you can come check us out on Instagram, and we'll be chatting all things baby. Okay, so we've had another question to do with feeding both breast milk and formula. He'd always prefer breast milk, but supply wasn't meeting the appetite. Any tips on how to juggle this with a baby who wants to be cuddled loads? The ultimate cuddle juggle. Yeah, so very, very common for babies, especially in those first 3 months, to want to be cuddled a huge amount. It is really thought of as this 4th trimester where they're just getting used to life outside of mum, and so it is very normal for them to want to be cuddled a lot. I do appreciate keeping up supply is very challenging, so I'm having my own challenges with feeding at the moment. So even though my daughter's tongue tie was cut, she doesn't seem to like breastfeeding. So I wasn't able to breastfeed my son. He was in intensive care and he just didn't take to it. So we bottle fed him. And I got mastitis and all sorts of wonderful things. If any of you are experiencing mastitis, I feel for you. I felt so unwell. But yes, so my experience of feeding this time has been that my letdown is actually pretty fast. So basically she has a sip and then passes out, so isn't feeding very well at all on the breast. So I have been both pumping and using formula, but I do appreciate that that is not a lot of people's preference and that they want to continue breastfeeding, which if you are, is working for you, is fantastic. So there are some things you can do. You can think about, you know, what you're eating. There are lots of good things out there that can help boost your milk supply. So, you know, you can make lactation cookies, you can buy them. I had a very kind friend who made some for me, and there are certain types of tea, but if you kind of I'd look into it, there are kind of very simple things you can do. Again, it may also be worth speaking to a lactation consultant about your positioning when you're breastfeeding, because even that can affect the flow of the milk, as can different times of day. So with a certain type of milk that your baby's getting, that may make them more full. So lactation consultants are definitely the kind of people to speak to. The support is out there, but don't feel too bad. You know, I'm sure you're just doing your best trying to keep up your supply, and you know, just keep an eye on your baby's weight. But hopefully it's a supply and demand job, and you will get there. But don't worry about cuddling them loads, unless you're going to be cuddling them and holding them all the time when they're 25. Make the most of those newborn cuddles, because I can assure you when they're toddlers they probably won't be as cuddly. Okay, this is a real struggle, and one that I'm facing at the moment as a mum of two. So someone has said breastfeeding their newborn on demand and being able to get their 3-year-old to preschool on time. I mean, I've been experiencing this one as we speak. My son started a new nursery, which was great, trying to settle him in. My daughter came slightly early, and then trying to kind of work the two has been challenging. I have to say, my things for getting to preschool on time involve planning the night before. I put all our outfits out, I put shoes by the door, I kind of get us all completely as ready as we can be. I then have some rather good negotiation tactics with my toddler, because, you know, it is really hard, and I felt like, you know, yesterday even, my daughter was crying. I had to try and get us out the door, and to the point where my son actually took a bottle over to her and said, "Mummy, she wants milk," which did make me feel a bit bad. But ultimately, you know, everyone will get fed, everyone will get there, and if you're a few minutes late, don't worry about it. But yeah, I'm afraid it's an organisation thing, isn't it? Get as much as you can done in advance. Don't worry if you haven't put, you know, the baby in a clean outfit. Do that when you get home. And yeah, you know, no one's going to be judging you. If you're getting out of the house with 2 children, you're doing a pretty good job. I am currently, if you're wondering, bouncing with my foot to get my newborn settled whilst carrying on this chat, but she seems pretty chilled now, so long may it last. Right, another question. And please do feel free to ask me live, but I'm just looking at these ones that have been asked in advance. So someone has said, "Guess not a new mum anymore. 9-month-old will not go to sleep until 2 a.m. Daddy and I are tired." Okay, yeah, so lack of sleep. Lack of sleep. I mean, no one can prepare you, can they? And you get those really helpful people when you're pregnant, telling you how little you're going to sleep. And maybe you believe them, maybe you don't, but sleep deprivation is no joke, especially when you're like me, a couple of weeks in, or like this I think lady 9 months in, that accumulation of a lack of sleep. Oh, I feel for you. Not sleep until 2 a.m. Now, I am no sleep consultant. We have wonderful sleep consultants on our courses, but not sleeping till 2 a.m. is tough. So babies actually do need to sleep quite a lot, and I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking we need to keep them up all day, but that actually results in them being overtired by the time they go to sleep. And then they're not able to go to sleep. So I just say, you know, regular naps, try to stick to a kind of schedule that works for you, and try and shift that 2 a.m. gradually earlier. 2 a.m. is tough though, I do feel for you. I hope you don't have to get up too early in the morning. Okay, someone has said, Nicola has said, She is exclusively expressing, so finding time to express enough milk, feed and do the housework. Right, this is one I can relate to because I am mainly expressing as well, just because breastfeeding isn't working for us that well. I don't know how long it takes you to express, and I don't know what machine you're using, but I have found that my pump broke the other day and I got a new one, and even just getting that new one, and it was a change of brand, change of positioning, everything, has meant I'm pumping much quicker. I try and pump at set times of day, so in the morning you tend to have the most supply, so I pump then to try and get as much as possible, and in the evening your supply tends to dwindle. I don't know if you're getting up to express in the night, maybe while your partner's feeding, but exactly, trying to get, if you are expressing, it's great to be able to try and get someone else involved, and then you can cut the time down with the bottle. But as well as feeding, obviously they have to be fed, but doing the housework, I mean, I'd say it's the last thing on your list. I appreciate everyone wants to try and keep a semblance of normality on their life, but a good tip I have been working on over the last couple of years is trying not to do things I can do when my baby's awake, when they're asleep. So if they're asleep, I'm either sleeping, resting, or doing work, or doing something that I can't do when they're awake. Sort of things like housework, or loading the dishwasher, or putting on the washing machine, are the sorts of things I can actually do when my children are awake. So I try and do that so that I'm not scrambling around at nap time to try and make the house tidy. But also, I'm quite relaxed, I do let it go. And I just, yeah. My husband's luckily very tidy, so I'm afraid he does pick up after us a bit, if I'm being honest. But I'm okay with that. I'm keeping 2 children happy and healthy and alive. So, you know, he very much just pulls his weight as a parent. Getting time to cook healthy meals again. Again, one I can relate to. Again, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, you know, ultimately, when you're sleep deprived, you're not necessarily your best self, put it that way. You don't have the time and or inclination to be cooking fresh, healthy meals. I'd say, though, there are some real hacks out there. Batch cooking. My biggest letdown is actually on snacks. I can prepare okay meals, but then I will, when I'm having like a sugar low, I will just grab the chocolate, grab the crisps, grab whatever is easy and convenient. So if I can, I do try on like a Sunday, or when I've got a bit of extra pair of hands, I do try and batch cook and make stuff in advance for the week. But you know what? Don't feel bad if you can't. There are so many ready-made, freshly prepared stuff out there if you do need to rely on that. And I can assure you it doesn't last forever. Once your little one is having longer naps, and in the day, that you can just find a bit of time for yourself. And if you enjoy cooking, I really enjoy cooking, I often just do it as soon as they've gone down to sleep. And yeah, prepare for a few days. Oh, thank you, Jessica, for your comments. It's always nice to get comments on these things, because otherwise you do feel like you're talking into oblivion. So I appreciate it. And I don't know if you've got a little one, but yeah, hope you're well. Right. Someone said eating properly and at the right time. Yeah, my husband and I used to have a joke that as soon as we had dinner ready in the evening, our son's eyes would just open so that one of us couldn't eat. At least one of us couldn't eat. I don't think we ate a good meal together for a good few months. That's fine. Yeah, I'm afraid the whole eating food while it's hot, coffee while it's hot, you know, the microwave is going to become your best friend. Yeah, I think just do remember to eat though. I think, you know, we really do prioritise when we're feeding them and we work around our children's times. But please do remember to eat. I've even got a snack with me right now in case I get hungry during this talk, but I've just realised it's kind of chocolatey, probably get my teeth hugely unattractive, so I'll hold off for now. But look after yourselves, plenty of water, especially if you're feeding. And don't forget to eat, even if it's just little and often. I find having, wherever you tend to do your feeding most, have some snacks, have some drinks lined up, because when your baby's crying and you kind of run over there to feed, you are set up as well. So please do all look after yourselves. We're all guilty of not doing it. I meet so many new parents who don't look after themselves, me included to a large extent, but I am getting better. And right now, you know, I've got the milk for my daughter, snack, coffee and water all lined up, ready to have, although I may go cold, who knows. Someone has said, daytime naps are a puzzle for me and sleeping in general. Getting my little one to stay put in a Moses basket is an impossible task. Now, this is so dependent child to child. So my eldest would go down in his Moses basket, absolutely no problem. My daughter, on the other hand, stuck to me like glue, absolute glue. Every time I put her down, her eyes ping open. Although now she is happily kind of half awake, slightly semi-dozing in the bouncer as I rock her. My son wouldn't have needed any of that. He'd have been put straight down. So daytime naps are possibly. I don't know how old your child is, but I know that our sleep consultants really do advocate that I wouldn't get too hung up on the age. Now, someone's just commented, Rachel, because I think this is relevant. Trying to get my 4-year-old into some kind of routine, but she wants to feed all the time, and I don't want to demand feed her all of the time. Yeah, okay. Hard, especially if you're breastfeeding, because often I find that the only way to make my daughter stop crying is essentially to feed her, and she has become also, she's only nearly 3 weeks old, so similar demand feeding. It's a difficult one, because ultimately, especially if you're breastfeeding, you don't know how much your child is getting, so they may genuinely be hungry, and at this age, in kind of 3 or 4 weeks, demand feeding until they get their weight up and you can get into that 3-hourly routine is what is tend to be advised. But I would say I wouldn't get too het up on a routine, because it does come, they do stretch out, and I think if you can really try and make sure that your little one is getting really full feed, so you're feeding either from both breasts or they're getting a really good amount of milk, really persist with making sure they don't just snack for a minute and then come back. It's not always possible, but I do find that if they're able to get that full feed, they will start to go that bit longer. We've just managed to get some 2.5 stretches in our house, and that to me is progress. But that is because my daughter was kind of falling asleep on the boob and not actually drinking, so just trying to really make sure that they are actively drinking that milk and not just on you for comfort. If you are trying to stretch out that routine, is good. And it's tough. If you don't want to be demand feeding, it's really tough, and that's part of the reason I found bottle feeding so convenient, because it meant it wasn't purely dependent on me, because I did find that really tough as well. But it's completely personal preference, and I know loads of mums who absolutely don't mind demand feeding, love it, and are happy with doing it. So up to you. But yeah, I'd say making sure your little one gets really full feeds, both boobs and or good bottle feed. Yeah, but putting your little ones down. So there are a few little tips you could try when you're trying to put them down. And I know, none of us want to have our little ones crying, and it's very normal for them to want to be very comforted. But that you could do something like have a breathable muslin, and you could lay that between you and your little one, especially when you're feeding, so it picks up your smell and the smell of the milk. And it's something that you can kind of have is either put it underneath where they're sleeping and tuck it in if you've got like a sleepy head or a little cot, and it's the sort of thing that they might want to grab onto when they learn to grab, and it has your smell, the smell of the milk. It's really comforting, and it's something that might mean they go, if you put it down with them when they go to sleep, they just have that little bit of comfort that isn't just being on you. But if you're a baby, you can understand that being on a nice warm loving human being is probably more tempting than being down in a Moses basket, but it does come, I promise, it does come. Yeah, so someone here has an unwell child who is 16 days old and is struggling with breathing due to having some mucus on the back of their throat. They've seen medical advice and been told to use some saline drops, but it is difficult. So I don't know if you know, my son actually does, my eldest is nearly 3, and he actually has lung problems. So I did have that fear, I do have that fear as a parent, that you do worry about them choking or something happening to them, and I'm glad that you've got some medical advice on that. But there are a few, and you said you're doing steam and they're using saline drops. In a safe way, there are certain wedges you can use to tilt your child's sleeping solution, just so that they aren't lying flat the whole time. I found that helpful. I also think if you are, if there is a bit of mucus building up, winding them really well and keeping them upright after feeds as well is also helpful. But if you are concerned, just do go back to A&E, see if there's anything you can do. but you know, try not to drive yourself crazy. It's very difficult. It's very difficult, and having had an ill child. And if anyone is going through anything like that, please do feel free to message me after this Facebook Live if you just want a bit of support, because seeing your child unwell is very challenging. And I'm very lucky that my daughter was born healthy. So yeah, tricky one. Okay, another question that's come in. It's all to do with napping and how some children like to nap in the pram as opposed to in their cot. They're exclusively breastfeeding, don't really get any time to themselves, and it's daytime tricky when based at home. Again, napping in the day, 12 weeks, 20 to 30 minutes. So babies tend to sleep in sleep cycles, and it is only at, I think our sleep consultants say about 5 months when they develop cycles where they can go longer, and you can encourage them to go longer. But it is really tricky, like you say, if you're having to be in the car or in the pram for them to nap. I feel for you, and it is tricky when you're based at home, but I think get as much help as you can around the house. Delegate, don't feel bad for doing that. And if there's someone else who can maybe go and take your daughter or son for a walk, do that so you get a bit of that alone time. Even having a shower on yourself is such a luxury, isn't it? So Jessica's got a 4-week-old and a 3.5-year-old. No routine yet. No, I feel you, Jessica. We don't have a routine here either. Her routine fits in with my son's, and I say her routine. There is no routine, and I'm sure it will come in time. I'm hoping that is for me. Lazy sofa days. Yeah, lazy sofa days are the way forward. It is tricky when you have another child. I don't know if you've got any childcare, Jessica, but we have mornings at nursery, and it is dreamy when my son is at nursery in the morning, and in the afternoon, as it's getting a bit more autumnal, it's actually, it can be really lovely. But I'm sure as well the routine will come. Okay, another comment. And do you know what? All these comments where we're not getting sleep, our children aren't napping, they're not doing what we expect, we're having to demand feed, crying if they're put down. I just want to reassure you that we are all going through the same thing. The comments are literally, I mean, you could just stick one person's name on these, and they're from so many different people. But going through it as well, I just want to say, there is a time when it breaks through and your baby is less dependent on being demand fed. They are less dependent on being on top of you all the time. But we are all in it together. That being said, it is exhausting and it is really challenging. So I think the most important thing is that we talk about it. We don't have to say that it's perfect all the time, because to be quite honest with you, I am exhausted. I am genuinely exhausted. You know, we were up between 2 and 5 last night because my daughter had, I think it was track wind. She couldn't go to the loo. I mean, we couldn't 100% figure it out. But she seems happy this morning. So can't say I seem too happy this morning, but I will be napping when both my daughter and her son hopefully nap together at lunchtime. Please don't ever feel bad for napping, having a rest yourself. Don't feel like you have to get everything done around the house. Again, top hack there is doing things that you can do while they're awake, when they're awake, and really reserving that time for when they're asleep, just to do things that you can only do when they're asleep. Whether that's writing an email, that you want to do a bit of work, whether you want to catch up on a bit of sleep yourself, do that then. Someone said getting out of the house on time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long it takes you to get out of the house. It takes me a fair while. Again, have stuff by the door. Do as much as you can, but inevitably, as soon as you are ready to leave, your child will probably have a nappy explosion. We have had one of those this morning ourselves, but luckily not in the Maury outfit I put her in. Thank goodness, because it's just so lovely. Right, so someone has said, not a new mum, 6-year-old and 2-year-old. Biggest struggle is lack of sleep and forgetfulness. I thought forgetting things would be a thing of the past. It's an everyday struggle, or where I'm going once I'm in the car. I feel that too. Oh, thank goodness. I thought it was just me. I I think you know, people talk about baby brains, but I'm afraid when you're tired, which is pretty much life as a parent, yeah, forgetfulness is a real, not just new mum struggle, it's a mum struggle full stop. But I think, you know, if once you're in the car and you figure out where you're going, don't worry about it. You've done well. Okay, so Rebecca has said, weaning onto solid food, struggle with what I should give her, actually cooking it, baby doesn't like to be put down, make purees and freeze them. I want to do baby led, so hard cooking from scratch, determined to give her fresh. That, as she doesn't like to be put down for naps, equals tired. Yes, right, weaning. So that is a session again. We have registered nutritionists come in and chat to our mums about weaning. My son was allergic to dairy, not a very good eater. Yeah, it was a challenge weaning him. I also I started with the best intentions of trying to make everything fresh, puree, steam it, the works. And I remember I went and bought the pots. Even the labels for them. I think I steamed carrots. I think it was carrots I started with. Not sure why. I made like 12 batches of carrots, steamed, puree, lovingly prepared. And then he didn't like carrots. I couldn't believe it. And I actually, you know, I'm afraid feeding, whether it's, you know, kind of breast, bottle and or weaning, it's really personal. You feel like, this is how I felt, like I should be able to feed my child. And yet when he rejected food, I took it really personally. I feel a bit that way about breastfeeding, but I especially felt it when I kind of gone and lovingly prepared something. Now that's not to say don't cook from fresh, don't cook from scratch, don't make any effort, because 100%, you know, we want to feed our babies well, but you know, I know that one of our weaning experts' top tips is if you can get to the point where you're getting your baby to have the sort of foods that you're eating yourselves, it takes a lot of the stress out of it, because if you're making it for yourself anyway, if they don't want it, that is totally fine. So we may be talking about if you're having scrambled eggs on toast for lunch, that's the sort of thing that you can do that's kind of, you know, when I'm talking baby-led weaning, I'm not talking about in the truest sense where all your baby has is stuff that they feed themselves, but you could do it so that they have finger foods of toast, little bits of omelette, you know, but you can do things that you would make yourself anyway, so don't worry if you're not kind of doing individual, lovingly prepared bits for them. You know, if you make yourself a roast at the weekend, you can just go and blitz some of the veg up, you know, mix it with some breast milk, mix it with whatever, you know, you've got available into a puree if you want to do purees, or, you know, you can give them once, you know, weaning is established, you can be giving them those finger foods and different foods, and yeah, keeping it to what you eat roughly can take a lot of the stress out of it. So don't beat yourself up. Weaning is a struggle, or it also can be wonderful. I had a tricky experience, but I'm hoping my daughter is different. She seems to eat everything at the moment, milk-wise, to the point of overfeeding. So I imagine we might have a slightly different experience with her, but yeah, that's a way you can achieve fresh by cooking for yourself and giving your daughter a little bit too. Next question is someone saying they are very fortunate because they stay at home with their baby, but they get major anxiety leaving them. So they don't. Yeah, and she's very close to her daughter. She's about to be 3 months, and I'm not going to be okay with any of the above, with other people holding her and everything else until she's like 5. Do you know what? It's totally personal, and don't worry that you feel that way. You know, we all react quite differently to when we have children. You know, some of us kind of want to straight away be like, can someone else hold them? Can someone else look after them so I can have 5 minutes? And yeah, others of us, I completely understand that you feel that way and very close. And it is very normal. You know, you have been through a lot when you've had a baby, but you know, if there are trusted people that you can leave your baby with, even if it's just for a few minutes while you're in the room, you can build up that trust and hopefully help you feel less anxious. So yeah, do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable, and don't put any pressure on yourself. It will all happen naturally when the time comes, so don't worry about it. And someone has said, not having anyone to lean on, nobody to be in this with me. My husband's amazing, but he works 14, 15 hours a day, so I'm mainly alone. And they study, and this person studies, so they can have a better life, and the mum lives 10 minutes away, but basically isn't massively helping. Now, do you know what? This is a big reason we run Nurturing Mums. Now, we are only in London and we are launching in Market Harborough, so I'm sorry if we are not in your area. But a big reason we do what we do in our postnatal courses is so that when you are a new mum, you can make friends, because it is, or can be, a really isolating time. So you may have made some friends in antenatal courses, but they often can't help you come around and look after your baby because they have their own babies to look after. But still having friends who are going through it, and even just, you know, joining in chats like this where you can all see that we're in it together is really good. And you're kind of, you know, making one step forward. But do, you know, for when your husband is around, do try and find some time for yourself and carve out that time. As I said earlier, new mums, we tend to be quite rubbish at finding time for ourselves, you know, whether that is literally having a shower or going out, or whether you just want to go somewhere else and study, Hayley, I just say, you know, do it. And ultimately, you know, do get some childcare if you can. If there's somewhere you can ask, it's really worthwhile. So yeah, there's some of the questions that I've been sent. I was going to talk about a few other things. Obviously, feel free to ask questions as we are going along. But yeah, I was just going to talk a little bit about kind of my experience now as a new mum, and maybe it will relate to some of you. So I had my little ones by elective C-section. My first recovery was good, really good actually, really good. This one has been harder. I'm only a few weeks in, but still quite sore. The operation didn't quite go to plan. A lot of births, as you all know, don't go to plan. I don't know how yours went. You were very fortunate if it kind of went how you were expecting. But, you know, in that postpartum, really early days period, you know, your body is going through so much, both physically and hormonally. And, you know, all the questions today have mainly been about babies, but please don't feel, you know, please do look after yourselves as well, because you are recovering from whether it's a major operation like a C-section, or, you know, a major thing that's happened to your body. So please do just give yourselves a break on that. Yeah, so I have my little ones by elective C. We talked a bit about feeding. It's a tricky one. So my daughter had tongue tie. My son was bottle fed. My daughter seems to be breast, bottle and express. She is literally a bit of everything. You know, I'm finding, I know I was speaking to one of the mums earlier on here, finding time to do all of those things is tricky. But if I am expressing, I'm very much asking my husband to step in and do feeds, just because, you know, it is exhausting. Please do look after yourself when you're feeding as well. Eat, drink, do all of the above. And that being said, I made myself a drink. I haven't actually had any yet, so I better have some to practice what I preach. And it's still warm, so it's fine. So my experience of feeding has been tricky. I mean, I think, as I said, my letdown's too fast. She doesn't feed very well on the boob. I found it hard. I found it quite, because I couldn't breastfeed my son. I think I thought, oh, I'll definitely do it this time. It will be okay. But it's been sore. It's been quite painful. I've had to get her tongue tie sorted, and you know, I'm struggling with the fact that I don't know how much she's feeding as well. I think I'm kind of unable to gauge that, and I find that quite stressful. So for me, I find bottle feeding quite reassuring, because I can tell what she's getting, but that's a very personal thing. I also wanted to talk about having a toddler as well as a newborn. Gosh, I mean, I actually thought I would prepare for the worst, and I know that sounds bad. I love my son to pieces, but you just don't know how they're going to react, and I felt a bit guilty about having another baby and how he'd feel about it. But you know what? It has been so much better than we could have possibly imagined. He's been absolutely lovely. If you see us over on Instagram at Nurturing Mums, he is always on our stories. He loves giving her a cuddle, sometimes a little too hard. I don't think I have ever said the words gentle please more. in my entire life, but that is fine. But adjusting to life as a mum of two has been interesting. So I know some of you on the thread have had second babies, and a few things that have helped us have been really keeping my son to his routine. You know, my husband's back at work, it's just me, but he is at nursery in the mornings. I'm very lucky that he's able to do that, so he has that time for himself. I have that time with our little baby, and then really the afternoons are about the three of us, but also really mainly about what my son wants to do. And yeah, being able to keep his routine consistent has really helped. He's been super loving, and yeah, we did kind of lots of trying to get him involved with the bump before she was born. And yeah, we think hopefully it's paid off. So yeah, just want to reassure any of you, if you have first babies and think about seconds, it's actually been fine. Another thing I wanted to mention, so we talked a little bit about feeding, a little bit about siblings. Yeah, lack of sleep. I think as well, like at the beginning, it's a bit of a shock, and then it's actually only really at a few weeks in, so at this sort of point, that you start to get really, really fatigued, because you've just got that culmination of a lack of sleep. It's all compounded. Your partner's probably back at work, so you know this is the time that you might think, oh, I should have got this. My baby's like a month old or a few weeks old or however old they are, and that you should know what you're doing and it should all be easy and fine. But don't worry, don't feel like if you still 6 months in don't 100% feel like you know what you're doing. Our babies are changing all the time. We are understandably exhausted, so don't worry if you don't feel like you've got everything together. Don't worry if your house is a mess. Don't worry if you feel like when you go onto social media and you see all these people who are portraying this perfect image of motherhood. Just remember, probably out of shot there's a massive pile of washing, there's a top covered in baby sick, there's an explosive nappy. We all are going through the same things. So just chatting about that and about the kind of honest side of it is really helpful. By the way, I'm just going to keep kind of chatting about newborn life. If any of you got any more live questions, do feel free to pop them on the feed. Otherwise, just start with me for a little bit longer. But I hope that is okay. So a few things that we have been doing kind of with my daughter's sleep. So I've been trying to get hands-free. We've been using a baby carrier. We've kind of been using a hybrid one that's between a wraparound sling and a carrier that's suitable for newborn. I found she really likes that, and because they're still, if you are thinking of using a carrier, using it when they are quite small is great. A, it gets them used to it. B, they often really like it. So yeah, if you're struggling to get things done around the house because they have to be held all the time, it's well worth getting a carrier, because often you can kind of get on and be hands-free and do all of those bits and bobs with them in the carrier. So we have the Kaboo Close to Me one. It's great. I really like it. It's kind of stretchy but supportive and suitable for newborn. So that's been working really well for us, and it's definitely made us hands-free. But yeah, you can try that, because if your baby, especially when they're small, wants to be held, wants to be next to you, wants to sleep on you, that could be a good little hack for you. Other things with sleep, so that's one way of making sure your baby's with you. And if they're struggling to be put down, it is a challenge. I can't say it's not, but just keep on trying. They do go down eventually, and it is very normal for them to want to be held a lot. But I realise that's not always practical, especially when you need the loo. They have a knack as well, like if you put them down on the bounce of when you have a shower, that they start crying the second the shower goes on. I can't tell you the last time in the day I had an uninterrupted shower. I've just now given up and I wait to shower in the evening once my partner's home. So just so you know, you're not alone there, and I hope everyone else is equally as unwashed, because sometimes things just have to slide. I say this now, my daughter is just, I will show you, she has just fallen asleep. She has just fallen asleep as we have been chatting. I will get her out of the bouncer soon because I know they're not supposed to sleep in the bouncer, but I won't keep her in there for very long. Promise. But I'm not gonna get her out right now because I'm feeling that could send everything going the wrong way when we're just having a nice chat. And when I say we're just having a nice chat, I'm just chatting at you and you're being lovely. So yes, so you could try introducing the comforter, the muslin. Do keep trying to pop them down for short periods. But yeah, I find the comforter a really good trick that tends to work really well. And breathable muslins work fantastically as comforters. Sorry, just checking, just checking. She's making some very bizarre noises. I think she is having some sort of dream. Oh yeah, and the other thing that I want to say, my little one's had a cold. She's had a cold already. She's only not even 3 weeks old. And we have managed to get a cold from my toddler being at nursery and loving her too much, we think. So a few things that we've been able to do to combat that, because obviously you're not able to use, what did I say? It was all going too well. I'm going to get her up. That's just improvising. 1 second. Oh, goodness me. Right, here we go. We can keep this going. This is Tilly. We'll just have a little cuddle while we carry on chatting. So I think, yeah, see, just loves to be held. Although we've done quite well. She's managed. So colds, yes, can't take things like Calpol or anything yet. But there are a few things you can do. You can do the saline drops, which tend to clear them out. You can just get those from your local pharmacy. You can get, they're like snot suckers. I don't know if you've seen them, but they are these little contraptions that quite frankly, yeah, suck snot from your child's nose. Sound awful, very effective. So they can be quite good. And another thing you can do is slightly elevating your baby's head when they are sleeping. Obviously following safe sleep guidelines, but again, it's a bit like us when we have a cold. You know, having your head elevated when, and I don't mean a pillow, still would not obviously advise little ones having pillows, but you can just elevate their mattress a little bit. And there are wedges and various things you can buy for that. Another thing I wanted to talk about as well, because it's something we face a lot, we talk about a lot on the courses, are if your little one has colic or reflux. Colic or reflux, so they're very tearful, very pained. We have a guest blog post about this. If you search Nurturing Mums, silent reflux or reflux, you'd find some really good tips. But I just want to say, you know, if you are facing night after night with a screaming baby, it's worth just getting a bit of external help. You know, check with your doctor and everything. But my son had reflux, he has silent reflux. I had to get put on medication for it. But once he was on that, it made a world of difference. So yeah, just keeping an eye on that. But there are some top tips over on our blog of things you can try. But just if any of you new mums out there are going through that, it can be really, really difficult. So I am feeling for you. My son also had a dairy allergy, which I can say I wasn't breastfeeding, so I didn't have to give up dairy. And I really love chocolate, and I think I'd have found that really hard. Not saying I wouldn't have done it, but yeah, that was another thing we faced him. He was very sick, like vomity sick, which again was quite difficult. I'm sure as a new mum, and this is a bit more light-hearted. Speaking of sick though, I don't know how much washing you have on at the moment, but genuinely, I think my washing machine is on constantly. But I feel like as long as they've got cleanish clothes, absolutely fine. A baby wipe can do wonders. Whether that's on myself or on my daughter, just don't feel too bad if you're not completely on top of it. It is totally fine. We are all sitting on mountains of washing. What else did I for the newborn? Yeah, I forgot actually the hormones and how you might feel when you've had a new baby, and you know, and that you may not feel up all of the time, and sometimes it can be really difficult because you feel like you should be grateful for every moment because you have got this, you know, healthy, wonderful little baby, But I just want to say, sometimes, especially if it's like at 4 a.m. and you're really feeling exhausted, it's okay to find it hard. We are all finding it hard. Um, and I think, we put a lot of guilt and pressure on ourselves to do it right, whatever that is. If any of you know how to parent the right way, feel free to drop me an email, drop me a line. But yeah, so Jessica said roller coaster emotions. Yeah, I just, this morning I felt like I could cry. I'm sure after this I'll feel quite energized because it's really nice just to openly chat about all this stuff and the new mum struggles. But our hormones have a funny way of playing tricks on us, and yeah, some days are more emotional than others. Obviously, if you're feeling down regularly, you can always look into getting a bit of extra help. But it's very normal to feel both elated and also quite down as well, kind of up and down thanks to our hormones. So don't worry about that. So as we were saying about babies not being put down unless they are falling asleep and those kind of things. Classic case in point with my daughter, who has now fallen asleep on me during this Facebook Live. But you know what? That's also fine. I can put her down later, and I'm sure I will find some time to do other things. So, before we finish, I'm just going to think about what we've been chatting about. So, a little bit about birth, recovery, hormones, feeding, lack of sleep, kind of not having to do everything. Please do find some time for yourselves. I don't know, I mean that sounds easy, doesn't it? And I think we all band around these terms like self-care, look after yourself, take time out, and that can really feel impossible especially if you're feeding on demand and have a baby latched to you the whole time. And I've spoken quite a lot recently about FOMO, fear of missing out, where there's a lot going on, either with your friends, with family, events you can't go to because you're kind of trapped in this bubble of new babydom. I missed a wedding the other day, and I know there are going to be kind of countless things in the next couple of months that I'm not able to go to. And it's tough. It is tough because you might feel like your life is over as you knew it, completely changed. And sometimes it's great and easy to take your baby along with you, and sometimes it's not, and it's not practical. Either the place isn't baby friendly, your baby might be in a bit of a routine, and you kind of don't want to break that because you've just got into it. And some people will be more understanding than others. But you've got to do what's right for you and your family. And I know you may be missing out on things. That's kind of a bit how I feel at the moment. But that being said, all of our friends and family go through these things at different times. There are always going to be other things you can do and see them at, so don't feel too bad. But yeah, I've been having a bit of that at the moment. But once my daughter kind of figures out how she wants to feed, I'm sure we will be able to kind of be out in real life and in normality again. But there is a definite newborn bubble stage. And I'm just going on the fact that at the moment there's some very good television on. We're coming into autumn winter, so the nights are drawing in, it's colder, snuggles on the sofa are far more appealing than going out. And you know what, with your friends and family, I'm sure they will always be there, especially the ones that are the good ones. So try not to worry too much if you do kind of feel like you're missing out on real life or your old life. It's just different now, and that's fine, and it's great. And I'm sure you, like me, can't imagine life now without your children. So they may have only been in this world a few short weeks, months, but yeah, I'm sure you can't think of what you did with your free time before, which free time is such a novelty. So yeah, absolutely. So whether you've had a challenging birth, a great birth, whether feeding's going well at times or not well, whether your child is, if your child is sleeping, I would say amazing. Please enjoy it, because they like to as soon as we get them into one routine, they like to just mix it up and have a developmental leap. Please try not to put too much pressure on yourself to compare yourself to others whose babies are the same age. I'm afraid they all do things at their own time. I mean, my son didn't walk, so they say after 18 months you should start getting worried. You're not worried, but you should, go and get external advice. My son walked the day before he turned 19 months. They like to keep us on the edge. Which is great, but it can be slightly interesting, especially when you think, I've seen them, so-and-so's baby do this, why isn't mine? But I just thought, you don't see people who can't walk. Everyone walks at some point, and actually there are lots of benefits to when your baby does things. So my son, because he didn't walk for a long time, has quite a lot of patience to sit and do things like puzzles, because he would sit for hours on end when his friends were all running around. So it's great because he's learned a different skill that way. So there are always some positives in there. If you're in, like me, this newborn stage where you are literally feeding, sleeping, changing nappies, them sleeping, maybe not you, and doing everything on demand, it does let up. I promise you, it does let up. At a different point for everyone. But I would say delegate as much as possible. Do things when they are sleeping. And when I say do things for yourself, whether it's having a shower, having a sleep yourself. Don't worry if certain things slide. Genuinely, you might be putting pressure on yourself to have a clean house and cook fresh food, but other people aren't. And that's not to say, it's all a phase and make it not a big deal. It's just that it is a relatively short period of time that they are like this. So don't worry if you don't feel up to going out and joining in with things and getting dressed. I actually think though, and I would say, especially from the mums that we meet, if you are having really challenging days as a new mum and your days started at 4 a.m, I really would recommend getting out of the house, whether that's just pulling on a pair of, even if you've got your pyjamas on underneath, put on a coat, get them in the buggy, especially if they're really crying. Often the change in temperature and the fresh air is enough to help them go to sleep and just calm down a bit, and also give you a bit of headspace. So get out of the house. Do try your best to meet other new mums. It doesn't have to be at a course like Nurturing Mums, whether it's just going to a stay and play, a coffee shop, meeting other new parents who are going through this sort of thing at the same time is really important. And I think what I've seen from all the questions that have come in advance of today and today is that we are all finding it challenging. We're all doing the same thing. We're all kind of trying to fit our lives in between nap times, feeding times and changing nappies, and we're all in this together. So I hope I've been able to give you a few tips, whether that's things like using a comforter, using a carrier, if you're feeding, obviously getting other people to help, eating some certain foods for supply. I hope that you've enjoyed this Facebook Live, because we really enjoy working with Maury. And if you want to find out more about us, and we have a blog and we're on Instagram, just look up Nurturing Mums, you will find us. We kind of are really trying to keep this new parenting chat real, and you'll see that kind of this is the sort of thing we talk about regularly, and it's really nice to be associated with a brand that kind of cares about that kind of thing. So it's great. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me after this live, email, whatever. We all need support, so do it. And you know what, just reward yourself. If your baby, even just for the small achievements, if you're dressed today, if you've had a shower, I think you're showing off, because I've definitely not managed that one. But just, really celebrating those small achievements, I find really helps, and just setting yourself really achievable goals. I wouldn't, manage your own expectations a bit, because if you're getting through the day, you're vaguely happy, you're all healthy, and you've had maybe you've had a nap. If you can achieve a nap yourself in a day, I think you're doing well. So please look after yourselves. I hope it all gets better. But you can follow us for chat on sleep, weaning, first aid, and everything else. Just general new mum life. So thank you very much, and yeah, I'm going to sign out now because I've got to do the nursery run. So enjoyable life of two. You can probably hear I've got my dishwasher going on in the background just because, you know, got to keep it real. Thanks so much, and yeah, hopefully chat soon to some of you. Bye.